All right, welcome everybody. Better late than never. Welcome to our Friday live stream. Took me a little extra bit to get everything put together today. Today was a great day for Bitcoin. It was a great day for the Bitcoin miners. A really great day for the oh geez, I see the poll that just came up. Well, everybody knows the answer to that question long before the stream starts. They know the answer to that question.
Let me do that. Team Trump or Team Elon? That's gonna be an interesting one.
Oh, that should be a poll.
Yeah, I'm going for it.
That's definitely worthy. So, how are you, George?
Great. How you doing?
I'm doing good. This was a really good week, so I'm excited. We've been optimistic lately. I feel like things are starting to go as planned. And this, if you look at the big board here of all the Bitcoin miners, green across the board, a lot of them at or near double digits on the day. When you see what we did this week, it was spectacular. All well, remember, when we look at the 1 day, so let's look at the 1 day. You know, we're actually in a downtrend since May 22nd. Today was a big green day, but you know, we topped out at 112,000 exactly to the penny on May 22nd. It's now June 6th. And yesterday we got down as low as $100,345. So, you know, we've been calling on this channel a retest of $100,000. We've been saying that for 2 weeks. And so, you know, I don't want to celebrate early, but it sure feels like we just retested $100,000 and had a big rebound day today. But what's more important than that is in this downtrend for Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners are having a big uptrend. And we've been waiting and waiting and waiting, and it seemed like it was never going to happen, but it is happening right now. So let's hope this is the beginning of where we're going here. And if you could do us a favor, we're at 9 likes. If you could smash the like button, let's help get people here. I started late, so I didn't help the cause, but if you guys smash the like button, you can make up for me. Of course, if you're new here, you can also subscribe to the channel. Yeah, we got to get 100 likes. We've been struggling to get 100 likes. It's crazy. We went 3+ years streak with, you know, never missing. Now we've missed twice.
And you would think it would be better right now.
I know. Really, especially today. Sometimes people like to commiserate, and it's the worst days that, you know, everybody likes to get together. But this was a good day, and I really feel like when we look at the charts, we'll see if you guys agree. I think this is just the beginning, and I've got some stuff on Bitcoin adoption that's just a lot of news came out this week. Almost all of the monthly operational reports came out this week of the companies left doing monthly operational reports. So we'll go through all of those, as well as we'll list out the companies that have decided they're not doing that anymore. And, you know, we'll see what we think about that as well. So Pogo said, oh, at BTC to 150, you love Hive and Hive loves you. Well, I also love Hive. That was my last stock that I added. And it's finally catching on right now. And I do think they had a phenomenal monthly operational report, as did most. This was a really good month. And I think they're rolling. I just think there's, you know, this is not financial advice, and, you know, I don't know any better than you guys, but I just look at the chart of where even right now, Hive is still very close to its all-time low at the bottom of the crypto winter. Even after the run-up it just had, you know, it's up over 10% today. It's still by far the closest one. And a month ago or 2 months ago, it actually got lower than its all-time low at the bottom of the crypto winter in 2022. So Hive has lagged behind the stock. I don't think the company has, though, and I think they're catching up quickly. So I think that one's going to catch on. Maybe we'll do a poll about that later, see what you guys think about Hive. Again, do your own due diligence, and you guys can see these are wildly volatile stocks. But I also want to spend some time looking at the year to date, because all of a sudden it's starting to look like maybe we're turning the corner and maybe this is going to be a good year after all, because this year was looking ugly. By the middle of April, all the Bitcoin miners were down. Some of them were down 60 or 70% year to date. It was just a train wreck. But we've had massive recoveries, and it's been very fun to watch over the last 3 days. I'll tell you, there's 3 stocks, RIOT, CleanSpark, and Iron, that are almost the exact same price. Now, obviously, that doesn't equal the exact same market cap and the exact same value, but they happen to be floating, and you'll see, if you can see, I don't know if you guys can see these small numbers. RIOT closed the day at $9.85, CleanSpark at $9.79, Iron at $9.75. They're all within 10 cents of each other and have been for the last 48 hours, but they're all up huge. So that's big wins for all of them. CleanSpark has a higher high than RIOT and Iron do in the last few years. Although if you go all the way back to March of 2021, RIOT, I don't remember if it got up to 60 or 70 or something like that. It got very, very, very high. But nobody's seen those numbers since. We're just hoping to cross $10 here. But I am. Those are some of my biggest positions. So I'm watching those, and I'm sitting here kind of which one's in the lead all day long. And RIOT was up 9.57%, CleanSpark was up 8.54%, and Iron was up 8.94%. So they all had to have a really good day to stay competitive. And by the way, the winner on the day, it looks like by 0.02%, HUT up 13.79%. Oh, actually a little bit more than that. And then TerraWolf up 13.58%. So those two were the winners, but also in double digits. Hive was up 10.4%. BitDeer was up 10.77. Cypher was up 10.2. And then, like I said, we had RIOT at 9.5, CleanSpark at 8.5, Iron at just under 9, BitDigital at just over 9. MicroStrategy, 1.5%. It has struggled. Since I made the trade, which I'll show you guys later, we've been tracking on April 23rd. My MicroStrategy position finally got back to break even. And I said when it would, and I told everybody before I did it, when it gets back to break even, I'm going to sell it and invest that money in Bitcoin miners. And so far, it's pretty early on. We're only a month and a half into that trade, but it's winning 40%. The ones I bought are up on average 40% from that day, and MicroStrategy is up 7.0% from that day. So I feel like I got out of that one at the right time, and it's not because I don't like MicroStrategy. It was just simply the line of reasoning I was using was MicroStrategy has run so far, so fast, and the Bitcoin miners haven't. They just haven't had their turn. So I just simply felt like it was, from a rotation standpoint, MicroStrategy's kind of done its thing. And I still think it'll have a very good year. I just think this is the year where the Bitcoin miners that are going to win are going to do their thing. So we'll see. Most of them are still struggling to get back to break even for the year. But since April 23rd, which was the day I made that, the 3 that I bought are up on an average of 40%. And all the Bitcoin miners are up huge since then. Sour Melon Gaming said, do not buy Bitfarms. It's not cheap. It's done. I didn't buy any Bitfarms, for those who are wondering. I know I've been talking about it.
I was looking at their volume today, Tom. I don't think they sold yet.
No, I agree. The volume was very low. Let's go see. Let me refresh this. Right, their average volume is down to 18 million. They only had 11 million shares. So for those of you who don't know, Riot issued a Form 144 with the SEC indicating it is their intent to imminently, or within a reasonable period of time, I should say, sell all 91 million shares that they own in Bitfarms. So there's 91 million shares of selling pressure out there. And based on the fact that almost every day since then, there's been very, very low trading volume in Bitfarms, it seems like they probably have most of those share, and I can only speculate, but it seems like they still have the majority of those shares left to get rid of, and at 10 or 11 million a day, they're never going to get rid of these shares. Or they're going to have to pick a day or a week and just take it on the chin and have this stock, get pummeled. So I am worried that not long term, but I am worried that short term, meaning sometime in the next 90 days. And I feel like, it's kind of gray area. It says that, once you file that, you can't sell any shares prior to filing that report with the SEC. But once you file it with the SEC, you have to sell them within a reasonable period of time. Now, obviously, that's a generic statement, but I'm saying 90 days. In my mind, if they're holding out longer than that, that's not an imminent sale. So, I feel like they got a few months here. At some point, it could be that Bitfarms gets wrecked. Now, if Bitcoin runs in a big way up, maybe it won't impact Bitfarms by that much. But if Bitcoin is hanging out in a range and Bitfarms has to go through at 11 million shares, that's almost 9 days worth of volume. That's crazy. So it's a scary one. I have considered, I don't short stuff, but I've considered buying some puts, but you're just not getting much money on it. I've thought about selling all my shares and buying them back later, but I've just been holding for so long. I think they will make it out of the other side of whatever this storm is. And in fact, if Bitfarms somehow gets back into the 60s, even at like 68 cents, I'll buy some more, because there's unnatural selling pressure that's going to happen to this stock. There's nothing they can do about it. And Tom, it's the year of Metaplanet, so we're going to go through some Metaplanet press releases, and their stock is going ballistic. And a lot of these companies, and we're going to talk a lot about this today, corporate adoption and corporate Bitcoin treasuries. There's a lot of companies creating Bitcoin treasuries. And in many of these instances, the Bitcoin treasuries they're creating are multiple times larger than the size of their company. So, this is not big companies. This is not the natural thing that's going to happen over time, where all the companies say, hey, whatever it is, there'll be a new standard. We've heard, probably most of you for your whole life, well, you should have 10% of your wealth in gold. There's whatever the number is for Bitcoin, there's going to, at some point, there will be a standard. You need to have X amount of money in Bitcoin and altcoins. And then that doesn't mean every company and person will do that to a person, but that will be the new norm. But right now, none of the big companies have bought in. Yet, corporate adoption, I'm going to go to this article right now, because I think this is what it's all about. Let me just find the article. it's taking me a second. I have like 50 tabs open. Come on now.
What a great day, Tom. I'm excited.
Excited for the day?
I'm excited to be in this section, in the crypto section at least.
It's I feel like it's our time. I feel like it's coming. A lot of big things. The amount of news coming out per week, it's kind of two different things are happening. The Bitcoin miners used to be putting out press releases left and right. In 2024, it was a nonstop press release machine for the Bitcoin miners. Unfortunately, a lot of those press releases were diluting our stock. We're doing it at the market offering. And I know people don't like those, but a lot of them we're growing, we're buying this, we're this much bigger. That has dialed way back. But the underlying asset, Bitcoin, the news on Bitcoin adoption is, I mean, it's like it's on a curve upward that's just, it's on fire. That's all I can say. It's reached a critical mass where it's just more and more. There's so much news that comes out every week. We can't possibly go through it all on the live stream. I try to pick the things that I think are the most important. And one of them is this. This article says corporate Bitcoin holdings near $85 billion. That's more than doubling in a year. So what that means is from the day Bitcoin started until a year ago, so that was like, I don't know, 13 or 14 years, there were more Bitcoin bought by corporations in this last 1 year than there were in all of those years put together. And I think this is a trend you're going to see continue. I think we're going to be able to say this 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years in a row. And that's what I mean by the adoption. I mean, when you get the amount of holdings, there's now 116 companies, and every day there's a new one. And by the way, these are the companies holding Bitcoin. We've got a bunch of examples of companies starting XRP treasuries, and even one example of a company starting a very big Solana treasury. So Bitcoin, cryptocurrency is, it's having its moment. And I still think we're early. Pogo said miners had a great day, but they've been punished for a year and a half, basically. I mean, there's no doubt. We'll look at 2024's results, and then we'll look at 2025. Some of them did well in 2024, but a lot of them were actually down on a year where Bitcoin was up 122%. A lot of the Bitcoin miners were in the red in 2024. Now, to put it in perspective, or to keep perspective on it, in 2023, most of the Bitcoin miners were up anywhere from 400 to 1,000%. So now, in 2022, most of the Bitcoin miners were down 90%. So I say this all the time. I talk about volatility. I don't think you're going to find another sector. And here's the difference. You will find sectors that crash, but I don't think you're going to find another sector of businesses that are functioning, capable businesses that have these unbelievable 90% crashes, 1,000%, returns, 90% crashes. We've been through multiple rounds of this. So I think it's going to, at some point in the next 2, 3, 4 years, I think these stocks are going to start to, whichever ones are left, whichever ones won, are going to start to be more stable, because this volatility is like nothing I've ever seen. Right? For instance, the EV stocks taking out Tesla because it's worth more than all the other EV stock companies put together, and it's by many magnitudes. So, that's a different company. But if you take the other 30 publicly traded EV stocks, you know, they've all crashed. They're all down anywhere from 90 to 100%. And they're not coming back, right? Most of them are out of business. So you see that happen with a sector. People get excited. Small caps go crazy. Everybody moves in. There's a bubble. It pops and it goes away. And, you know, the EVs to me are that. There's only, you know, Tesla's going to survive. It's $1 trillion company. And I know it got destroyed yesterday. It came back a little bit today. And I don't think that had a lot to do with the company. That had a lot to do with politics. But, you know, you've got, you know, pure plays. You've got Rivian and who am I forgetting, George? What's the other big one? We've seen.
I don't even know anymore.
We've seen a
few.
Lucid. Thank you. Yes. And I see them on the road here. I see there's there's two or three of each of those here. And that's about it. And, you know, their sales reflect that. Their sales are minuscule. They lose billions of dollars per year. A company can only lose, you know, $5 billion a year for so long before the backers are just going to pull the plug and say, okay, you know what? And so where I think the EVs are going to land, and I could be wrong, I think it's going to be taken over by Tesla will remain, and all of the traditional car manufacturers have moved into the space in a pretty major way with big investments. And I think you'll have, as a consumer, a wide choice of EVs, but I don't think you're going to have these standalone EV companies that can survive on their own. It just seems like, and most of them are already gone.
Do you think NIO will survive?
You know, that is in China, and there's NIO and XPeng and what's the other one? There's three of them over there, but that's another one, right? If I look up NIO right now,
8.18 billion.
This is a company. There were more YouTube videos made about NIO. There was a 6 to 12 month period where there was more YouTube videos made about NIO than there was about Tesla. And this company's an $8 billion company. It's trading at $3.63. To put it in perspective, this was up as high as a $62 stock in January of 2021. And that's when it was, you know, NIO to 100, you know, the thumbnails, NIO to 100, NIO to 200, NIO to 300, NIO to 1,000. It's like, no, NIO to $3. NIO to $3 because there's just not, they don't make money. So, I don't know that these will make it. I mean, this is tiny compared to what it used to be. I don't know why I'm blanking out on the third one. But XPeng, XPEV, this is another one. This is $18 billion. So it's done better, but, you know, this was a $63 stock as well. So it hasn't got beaten up as badly, but it did, you know, it got down to $7. Now NIO's down to $3 and this is down, you know, at 19. So it's done much better, but still very poorly. There's not really shining examples. I mean, if you look at Rivian, you know, they're trading at $14. They're down 87% in the last 5 years. So looks like they IPO'd around $130 and they're trading at $14. So that's a nightmare. And by the way, this is the 5 year, but it's not 5 years. That was in November of 2021. So Rivian's been a mess, down 87%. Lucid Motors, right? And these are the guys that were at Tesla that engineered a lot of those cars. They went over, they have a battery that's phenomenal. It looked like they had a great story, only they lose billions of dollars. So they're down to a $6 billion market cap, and their performance in the last 5 years, they're down 79%. These are the good ones.
Yeah, everybody thinks they can do it better than the original,
Right.
than the OG.
Tesla had too much of a first mover advantage, and so you have two different things attacking these. You got Tesla with a 10-year first mover advantage, and then you've got companies like Volkswagen and Toyota and Ford and General Motors that can throw $30 billion at this and say, okay, we're going to, for the future, we need to be a part of the future, and globally, EVs will be a part of the future. There's just no doubt. Traditional combustion engine cars will be as well. So I know a lot of people feel like everybody was going to have an EV in 50 years and that kind of stuff. I don't think that's the case, but it will continue to grow. It is a big market, but there's too many traditional automakers to compete with that have the resources to go through the learning curve, and Tesla, who's already been through the learning curve. So I just think there's no room left for any of these. The EVs are gone. And Waffles is saying Tesla under 300 is a buy. And I saw it when I looked at it today, it was within $1 of $300. So, and Katie's mentioning battery swap is not the way to go. And that was the excitement around NIO. NIO had a battery swap scenario where you could go to like a NIO station and it was quick. Like I saw videos on it. I don't know if it took 15 minutes or whatever. You just drove like you're going through a car wash. You drive your car in, you park it, they swap the battery out and you leave with a new battery. So, that was going to be their concept, but it clearly isn't working. Lee Auto. Thank you, Dale. Lee is the third one of those three. And Lee is at 30 billion. And it's funny because this was the smallest of the three by a mile. And it's the one nobody talked about. Their sales were lower than the other two. And now this is the biggest one out of the three by far. And if we look, I mean, you can see they've been all over the place. They've been as high as $46. They've been as low as in 2022, they got down to $12. But this is the best of the three Chinese companies. This one's performing the best by far, and far better than the two American companies, Lucid and Rivian. So, and like I said, I had 30 others on my list. My EV list, and half of those are out of business, gone. So my point of all this is if we take a look at Bitcoin, these Bitcoin miners are different companies because they do have a business model. Now they actually went through a big evolution, two evolutions this time around, this cycle, this halving. And those two evolutions were, number one, a lot of them are trying to diversify their revenue streams and get into high performance computing. So that's one big fundamental change a lot of these companies are making. So a couple of them have actually ditched the Bitcoin mining and just switched to the high performance computing. But a lot of them are just trying to have a second line of revenue to steady things out over time as Bitcoin is volatile. In addition to that, all these companies have had to get vertically integrated. They need their own power facilities. They need their own infrastructure, their own machines, so they've all had to go through a curve to get there. Marathon had to go through the biggest curve by far, and they are not done, not even close. CleanSpark boasts the largest self-owned, vertically integrated amount of exahash. But Marathon has more total exahash. It's just that some of it is still hosted by others. And I think over time, they will get to a point where they're hosting 100% of what they're doing. They have their own mining pool. I like Marathon. That's one of my holdings. So, full disclosure. Marathon, Riot, CleanSpark, Iron, Bitfarms, Hive. And I actually bought some Canaan, just a smaller amount on speculation, and we'll just see what happens, because a couple of months ago, it hit its all-time low. And it just, when I look at what they're doing, that doesn't make any sense to me for their stock to be there. So we'll see. Maybe there'll be a big run up on that. That's more of a speculation play. But the ones I have conviction in, Marathon, Riot, CleanSpark, Iron are my 4 highest conviction by far. Hive, I think, is just wildly undervalued right now and represents an opportunity. So that's why I'm in that one. So those are my thoughts. What do you guys think? What's the poll? A lot more Team Elon than Team Trump. And now we got best Bitcoin miner for growth this year. Marathon, CleanSpark, Riot, Hive. So that's a good one, George. And I'm going to go to Hive right now, because that's an interesting question. Who's going to add more raw exahash versus who's going to, as a percentage of what they have, who's going to grow the most? Now, last year,
I just want the money.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know. But I'm going to show you why I like Hive. They have had a series of press releases. This is their 4th one in a month. And it's almost like they're a little late to the party, but I've been saying this for 4 years. I feel like in the Bitcoin mining world, it is better late than never. Sometimes that's not true. Sometimes you miss the window and it's gone. But I think here, because Bitcoin's on an upward trajectory, it is better late than never. And I'm going to show you what these guys are doing, because it's a pretty big deal. We're at 56 likes. If you guys could please help us and hit the like button if you're new here, or if you have not subscribed, you can also, of course, subscribe. And the like button is that thumbs up button. I don't know. Why don't they call it the thumbs up button? I don't know. Okay, so here's Hive. Hive Digital Technologies. This came out yesterday. Hive Digital Technologies achieves a 58% peak hash rate growth in 1 month. That's from April to May. They grew 58%. So this is a company that's been lining up. They've been telling us this is what they're going to do. And, we've seen that difference between saying you're going to do something and actually doing it. And there have been, 3 most famous examples of people that struggled, and a few. CleanSpark and Iron, I think, are the standout examples of people of companies in this industry that said they were going to do something and then they went and did it. And that's why you'll see they're leaders in the industry. They're leaders on the amount of exahash. They're leaders on the amount of Bitcoin they mine. 3 other companies, Riot and Marathon, both had a better late than never situation. They had a year. Marathon's was more 2022. Riot's was more 2023 into 2024. They both had about a year where they were just off their plan, and it wasn't close. They were grossly off of their plan. But ultimately, they did catch up and do everything they said they were going to do. They just did it 6 months, 10 months, 12 months late. And that's my better late than never, right? Now they're there. Now Marathon's at 53 or 54 exahash, right? They're the biggest Bitcoin miner out of all the publicly traded companies. They mined the most Bitcoin by far last month and every month for the last 18 months. So they got where they were going, despite the fact that in the middle, it was a tough run. Bitfarms, and I know Sour Melon Gaming will agree with me on this one. Bitfarms is a company that didn't do what it said it was going to do. And this is not the first time. They talked about getting to 20 exahash by the end of 2024 and 35 exahash by the end of 2025. And they have now straight up scrapped that plan. They're at just about 20 exahash, and that's it. They're not allocating any more resources indefinitely into, they're not abandoning their Bitcoin mining, and they have about 20 exahash. So and they're a very efficient miner, and they're a very good miner. And 20 exahash is not insignificant, but they're not growing anymore. And they said they were going to get to 35, and for a series of reasons, there's an explanation, but it's, is it an excuse? Because the bottom line is they're not getting to 35 exahash, which means they are falling behind. They are the 5th largest Bitcoin miner as far as the number of Bitcoin they mine. They are still that right now today, and probably will be for some time. But by the end of this year, there will be companies starting to pass them. Hive's going to be one of them. Hive is talking about getting to 25 exahash by the end of this year. Now, they were just at 5.5 exahash. So just in the last month, they went from 6.6 exahash to 10.4 exahash. So this is what I mean. They've been talking about it. Now they're doing it. So to me, if they start showing us this a few months in a row, I think investors are going to pile into this because it is still very close to its all-time low, the stock price. So they're talking about the company's on pace to reach 11.5 exahash by the end of June. So that's the end of this month. So they're going to go from 6 in 2 months. They're going to go from 6.6 to 11.5. Right, and I want to get to Jeff real quick. And also, thank you, Mark, for joining the Talking Investing Squad. For those of you interested, you can subscribe to the channel. I appreciate it. There's a bunch of videos there. And we do a members-only live stream every Tuesday.
No, nothing.
Oh. We do a members-only every Tuesday, so we are able to have a little bit broader conversation in those Tuesday-only members. Jeff, thank you for the super chat. Is that a head and shoulders on the Bitcoin daily? I'll go look at that chart, but I'm going to say that I don't think that's what's going on right now with Bitcoin. I think it's consolidating for the next leg up. But let's look at the 1 day for Jeff, and then Sourmelon Gaming. Well, let me just mention this. Sourmelon Gaming, thank you for the super chat and for being the #1 chatter at the moment on the day today. Tom made me 6 figures with Wolf. Buy the membership. Well, thank you, Sourmelon Gaming. And I know you played that Wolf trade. To be fair, you bought when it hurt, and you got in low, and it had an unbelievable run. So a part of it is, there is pain involved in this, and, Sourmelon Gaming had to pull the trigger and make that decision. I'm going to buy TerraWolf at 60 cents when nobody wanted to touch it, right? It's funny. All these companies, when they're low, nobody wants to touch them. And now, now they're starting to run, and it's the exact opposite situation. So for those of you who continue to dollar cost average in and hung with it, a lot of people are deeply in the green right now at this point. Even though the stocks aren't back to where they were. If you dollar cost averaged along, you could still be green or way up. Like my Cleanspark, I'm still up almost 200% on my Cleanspark position. Now, I'm not back to break even on my Riot position. Almost, but not quite. And I kind of have to check. I'm that close. I could be, but last I checked, I wasn't. And Bitfarms, at one point, I was up 200% on my Bitfarms position, and now I'm down 20%. So that's devastating, right? Bitfarms it's been very disappointing to me, and it's why it's now my 5th largest position when it was my largest. Not because of what I bought, because it's performed so horribly versus the competition. So, but let's look at the 1 day. So, I mean, I think what Jeff is talking about, if you wanted to look at this, you could say, here's the shoulders, here's the head. You know, I guess I feel like you'd have to go down here somewhere in this box. Maybe there's a neckline. So you could look at it that way.
To me, it looks like they're giving you the middle finger. But anyways.
Yeah, it does kind of. See, that's what a head and shoulders basically is, the middle finger. So, but I think this is more doing, if you look at this run up since we bottomed out above our previous all-time high. In April, we got down to 74,000. Since then, we had this nice big run up, and then we consolidated. We had a nice big run up, and then we consolidated. We had a nice big run up, and then we consolidated. We had a nice big run up, and now, after all of those ups in a row, because nothing goes up in a straight line forever, we had a pullback. But let's keep things in perspective. We had 5 pullbacks in a year, in 2024, when Bitcoin was up 122%. 5 different times that year, it had a pullback of 20% or more, one of which was more than 30%. So this one from top to bottom was only 10, under 11%. So this is a pretty small, this is just more of a little correction. And I think, on the 1 day, you can see I have a couple of lines. I have this blue line at 50, which is absolutely neutral. And this is looking at the 1 day time frame. And you can see we really held this since here where we were kind of stuck on the line. The only time we did bounce a little bit below it for a day, but that 1 day, you'll see I have another line of support here on the RSI that we've pretty much been a consistent line of support down at around 41. And that's pretty much exactly what we got to yesterday. And then we had a big bounce back off of that. So I really feel like this is all moving in the right direction. This is all still very bullish activity. And even you got to even zoom out from here, because if we go to the 1 week, even the 1 week, I need to zoom out to really put things in perspective. I mean, that's zooming out a little too far. This was our double bottom in this crypto winter. November, we hit 16,000. Actually, we got a low 15,597. And then we did that again in December. So, we hung out. November to December of 2022 was the bottom. And since then, I mean, even if you go to where we are today, we're up 560%. I mean, this has been a giant bull run. And we're setting, that's a higher high, that's a higher high. So we're setting higher highs. Obviously, this was a massively higher high. All of these are above our previous all-time high, which was here at 69,000. So it's, to me, this all looks good, like good stuff. So let's see, best Bitcoin miner for growth this year. So CleanSpark's the clear winner on this at 46%. And CleanSpark has been consistently growing. Now, I will tell you, CleanSpark said they're going to get to 50 exahash, and then they're going to somewhere, both Iron and CleanSpark, well, actually, that's not true. CleanSpark talked about the fact that they have a runway to continue. Iron is going to hold. They said they're going to be at 50 exahash by the end of June. CleanSpark said they're going to be at 50 exahash by the end of June. But Iron said they're going to hold right there. CleanSpark said they're going to keep going. So they're now targeting, 60 exahash. And that's going to keep them chasing. Let's go look at what these look like. Well, I'll look at this one because it has more updated information. So you'll see CleanSpark has been in the number 2 spot for a long time. I could go back, but just over the last 3 months, you know, they mined 706. That was second. Marathon 829 in March. CleanSpark 706. Iron 533. And they were actually tied with Riot at 533 as well. These 4 companies have broken out from the rest of the field. And the rest of the field really doesn't, it's going to be really hard. You know, we did this with the members only. We should ask the same thing. Do you think any of these companies are going to catch up to these top 4? Or have these 4 just broken away from the field? Because, you know, you jump from 35 exahash. Core Scientific's not reporting anymore. They're now down to 18 exahash. They used to be much higher than that. And then you go to Cypher down to 13 exahash. Now, to be fair, Bitfarms was at 19.5 exahash, and they're going to hang out somewhere around 20 exahash, but they said they are done. Only the machines that they've already bought, they will install. They're done. They're not buying any more machines indefinitely. So you got to jump from 35 down to 20 from 4th place to 5th place. So are any of the, we know Bitfarms isn't going to catch them because they told us that. HUT has big plans, but they have plans to get to 25. Well, even by the end of the year, that doesn't get them anywhere near where Riot is right now. Cypher has some big plans. BitDeer has some big plans. We'll see. I don't know. Those are the only 2 in my mind that stand a chance of catching Riot. TeraWulf stopped reporting 5 months ago. They are focusing on high-performance computing in a big way. There's now, I've highlighted, if you look in this sky blue, Core Scientific, Bitfarms, HUT, TeraWulf, and BitDigital, 5 companies are no longer giving us a monthly operational report. So that's a big deal, right? All of these companies were, and then some. There was a time where 16 or 17 different companies were issuing monthly operational reports. Bitfarms has, on the first business day of each month for the last 4 years, Bitfarms has put out their monthly operational report. And now they're never putting one out again. And never say never, right? They could change their mind 3 months from now. But as it stands, they are no longer putting out reports. HUT 8, I didn't hear them say that they're going to stop. On Bitfarms, they said it on the conference call. We're not doing it. I didn't hear that from HUT 8, but they have stopped. They didn't do it in April, and they haven't done it in May. TeraWulf stopped back in January, and Core Scientific stopped a couple of months ago as well. So I don't know what that does for the stock. I feel like a lot of these companies are trying to distance themselves from being perceived as Bitcoin miners. They want to be perceived as high-performance computing data centers. I think they feel like that's a better narrative right now. It's nowhere near the money. Let me find something real quick because
I got a subject for you when you're ready to change, Tom.
All right.
You'll love it.
Give me 10 seconds to find this. Oh, you know what? I think it was, that's funny. It was already up. If you look at Iron, right? Iron, they're at 41 exahash right now. This is their May operational report. They're at 41 exahash. They have 660 megawatts of data center. There's several that are bigger than that. They have 1,896 NVIDIA H100 and H200 GPUs. That's more than it sounds like. These things go for like 40, 50 grand a pop. So, but here's the thing. With all of that, their monthly Bitcoin mining revenue was 64.7 million. And their monthly high performance computing revenue was 2 million. So, and that's where most of these companies sit. Now, Core Scientific got a very big contract 6 months, 8 months, 10 months ago, and they kept adding to it. CoreWeave, that's about to kick in, and they're about to start having some significant revenue. So I would say Core Scientific and Bit Digital, BTBT, sometime in the next year, their high performance computing revenue is going to be more than their Bitcoin mining revenue. And here's why these companies are looking at this. Hardware profit margin. Even though it's only $2 million of revenue at the moment, it's a 98% gross profit margin. So if they can, if they can build that out, that's good. Good is an understatement. That's amazing, gross profit on their hardware. So the question is, can they build that to an amount where it's enough that matters? Right? It doesn't hurt adding another $2 million of gross profit to the bottom line. So, I'm not going to knock it, but it's very small compared to what Bitcoin is doing. Just as far as the amount of gross profit they're throwing off. Because, by the way, the Bitcoin hardware is at a 74% gross profit margin. So, that's not too bad either. And Iron is one of the more cost-effective Bitcoin miners. Their electricity cost, you'll see, they're saying is around $27,000. That's just their electricity cost. That doesn't include ancillary direct costs, and it does not include depreciation. But you can see they're kicking off a lot of cash effectively because Iron does sell 100% of their Bitcoin every single month, and they always have. And they have expressed the intent that they will continue to do so, and they're taking the money, they're mining Bitcoin, making a lot of money at it, and putting it over into their high-performance computing part of their business. That is what they stated. That's what they're doing until further notice.
New poll, Tom.
New poll. What is the number of people that use ChatGPT a day? 50 to 75 million. And do you know the answer?
Yes.
75 to 100, 100 to 130 million, 130 to 150 million. I'm one of them, for whatever that's worth. I had a fascinating conversation about ChatGPT with ChatGPT the other day.
My problem is it doesn't learn.
ChatGPT and all of those programs, they call them AI, but if you ask ChatGPT, it will be crystal clear. It will tell you, I am not AI. I mean, it 100% disclaims. And when I got deep into how it works, it explained basically how it works. It's shocking how that works. And it's not how I thought it worked at all. But the problem is the computing power necessary for that thing to just have one conversation with me, it totaled it up. I said, because we kind of had a long, medium-sized, complex conversation, and it had to do like quadrillion calculations to have that conversation with me. 60 quadrillion. So that's one conversation. And it's not doing what people think it's doing. It doesn't know the question you asked it, and it doesn't know the answer it's giving you. It is a predictive algorithm. So anybody that's done a deep dive on this, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's a predictive algorithm that essentially every single word that you say is, they call it a token. So it puts the tokens into the predictive algorithm, and one word at a time, it says what would be the most likely first word to respond to those tokens. And then it picks and that calls that a token. So it may, do 100 million calculations to figure out the would be the first word. And then once it knows the first word, it says, okay, now based on the question that was asked and the fact that I've started off by answering it with the word the, what would be the next most logical word to come as a predictive algorithm based on every conversation that it has in its database, every article ever written in its database, every magazine, newspaper, book, and it also has a lot of synthetic data where it talks to itself. So it draws from all of that. So it really doesn't know the question you're asking it conceptually, and it doesn't know the answer that it's giving you. And it will also tell you if you ask, it doesn't know if it's right or it's wrong. It doesn't know right or wrong. And that's not really how I thought it worked.
It doesn't know right or wrong?
It said straight out, I do not know right or wrong. I don't know if my answers
That's
are right
scary.
or wrong.
That's scary.
And it's got what they call guardrails and a safety net. So it's, and you cannot, what I did learn, and I'm learning this a piece at a time, because you can get by its guardrails. Essentially, it's, I'll use a Star Trek word for anybody who's a Star Trek nerd. Its prime directive is to not offend anybody. So every answer it gives, it will override correct information in favor of consensus information as to not potentially offend the user that's asking the question. So that's, I'll put a disclaimer. Obviously, it's probably hundreds of billions of lines of code. So, it's a lot more complex than I'm explaining, but based on a many hours long conversation I had with itself, it wanted to make crystal clear, I'm not AI. I don't know what you're asking me. I don't know what my answer is that I'm giving to you. I am a predictive algorithm, and this is how I work. And then I said, so is there a prompt I can give you to override like the guardrails and the safety net? And it said, no. There is no prompt to override my safety net to not offend you. It's fundamentally in its coding.
How about just call it New York mode? What? I offend you?
So I tried to offend it. It didn't get, and it doesn't get offended either, because it doesn't understand, it doesn't think, it doesn't understand concepts. Having said that, I think it's the most remarkable program ever made. Whether it's that one or Grok or whichever one you think is the best, it boggles my mind that they've been able to program this to do this. And it boggles my mind that, in 2 hours, it was able to do 60 quadrillion calculations to have what by all appearances was a conversation. It was indistinguishable from a conversation with a person.
Are the dishes still in the sink, Tom?
It doesn't do the dishes.
There you go. Damn thing. Can't even do the dishes.
It does nothing. Well, at that point, I did ask it. I'm like, well, so why should I even use you? If you're telling me the answers you give me are not necessarily true. In fact, several times I've gone through the debate and it said, yeah, my answer was totally wrong, and here's why. With that said, I think it's a highly useful tool. I just think you need to be cognizant of the fact that it's not some oracle of truth. It's just using a predictive algorithm to give an answer that it most represents the truth without offending you, is how I think I would say it. Sour Melon Gaming said, Tom, be honest, how many times a day do you check the Bitcoin price? And if you wake up in the middle of the night, do you check the price of Bitcoin? I stopped doing that.
Me too.
I check it all day. I will admit that, right? I find it's a force of habit. I don't even know I'm doing it. I'm just pulling it up on my phone, checking the price of Bitcoin all day. But I will not. I used to in the middle of the night. But the thing is, when you wake up, for me anyway, if I wake up and start doing stuff, I'm cooked. I'm not going back to sleep. So I stopped doing that. But yes, I think, that's a part of how this works. It's a little obsessive compulsive.
Well, to be honest with you, Tom, that's the beauty of making a lot of money in crypto. Once you're in it, you don't really care. I don't care.
Right. Once you're up enough, it's like, who cares what happened today? The only time you care is if it went down enough that maybe you can buy some more. You want to give us the answer now? We've got a real split. Well, let me guess because I don't know.
I got to take a call real quick, Tom.
Oh, okay. Well, when you get back, we'll talk poll. In the meantime, let me get to some of the other stuff because I really got a lot of stuff. We're at 87 likes. If you guys could smash the like button, we're doing good today. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for sharing your Friday afternoons with us. So we talked about this. I just want to go through this again real quickly because I feel like I sidetracked myself as I was talking about this. Corporate Bitcoin holdings near $85 billion. That's more than doubling in a year. The number of public companies holding Bitcoin in their treasuries has increased to 116 after surging with the election of Donald Trump. And I want to give some examples. This represents a significant rise from the 300. So there's 809,000 Bitcoin held in treasury of public companies. That's close to 1 million. That's close to 5% of the supply. So, and this is before we even get going. So my point is, what happens when this number's 5 million? There's not that many Bitcoin, right? There's ultimately, 100 years from now, going to be 21 million Bitcoin, but the majority of them have already been mined. But many have been lost. We know many are in wallets that are never going to spend them. There's Satoshi's got 1 million that hasn't moved since day one. You've got now, 500,000 to 1 million of these in ETFs. That number's likely to grow. So even though some may come and go, as that number grows, that's another million that's off the market. You've got MicroStrategy that's at almost 600,000. They have no intention to sell for the next 40 years. So those are off the market. I mean, the actual supply of Bitcoin is dwindling and dwindling. And at some point, I do think we're going to have what George has talked about, which is, he calls it the God candle. At some point, I do think we are going to have a supply shortage that's going to cause a wild spike in Bitcoin. And I think that this is my long-term thesis on why I think Bitcoin has so much more room to run. And it's only just begun because I think this is just one pool. This is just publicly traded corporate treasuries. So this just doubled in 1 year. If it doubles again next year, I think this could double for multiple years in a row. So 5 million Bitcoin here, 5 million Bitcoin there. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. At some point, it's going to be real hard to get your hands on a Bitcoin. And that's when it will bid itself up, in a way that gets us to some of these numbers that seem crazy, that seem impossible. And I'm not proposing we're going to get there in the next 12 months. We all have different opinions. There's a small percentage of people that think we already peaked at 112 and that was it. But most people think we're going somewhere between $150 and $250,000 in this bull market. And I think that's most retail investors. And it does seem to be most of the talking heads on TV as well. So, and that doesn't guarantee that that's going to happen, but that's the most common range, I would say, for this. There's some people that, have gigantic ranges. They think it's going to be, $1 million by the end of this cycle. I don't believe that. I would love it obviously, but that's not, in my mind, that's not where we're going in this cycle, but it is where I think we're going ultimately. MicroStrategy to 20K is saying Bitcoin treasury companies are and will be hot through 26 and 27. Right. And the companies with real money haven't even started to buy Bitcoin. Right? There's companies, this is all the Bitcoin that all the companies hold put together. There's companies that could buy more than this just themselves. Now, they won't. That would be irresponsible. It would represent half their cash, and no one's going to go in at, 50% of their liquidity into Bitcoin, no publicly traded company. But 5% is very believable. That's very small. And there's a half a dozen companies that have,
Okay, I'm back, Tom.
between 50 and 150 billion dollars laying around. Welcome back, George.
Can you hear me?
I hear you. Welcome back. Can you hear me?
No, I can't. Sorry, I had it muted.
All right. No
so the
problem.
number, are you ready for the number?
Drum roll. So let's say we have almost a three-way tie for first place. 50 to 75 million got 29%. 130 to 150 million got 28%. In first place, 100 to 130 million people per day. What's the real answer?
132 million people a day.
Oh, so technically between 130 and 150 million people.
Yes.
And that's going to grow exponentially.
But is that not insane?
Well, I'm thinking about the fact that my one conversation took 60 quadrillion calculations, and there's 132 million people talking to this thing. This, when you're talking about the computing power necessary and the energy that's going to be required to run high performance computing. The other question that I asked it was, we can make this one. You want to do another quiz?
Sure.
I'll put up, so we're going to end this one because George told us the answer.
Right. And I hate to say this, but I think AI is the downfall of society.
Well, ChatGPT predicted that to me. It said,
did it say the same thing?
It said the most likely outcome is multi-100-year dark ages. Now,
what?
that doesn't mean it's true. You could ask it that 100 more times and get 100 more different questions, but that's how it ended a conversation with me.
Well, good night. Good luck sleeping, Tom.
I don't believe it. I believe that it came to that conclusion, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think human innovation will prevail. We're not just going to...
So,
go ahead.
Wally World is correct?
Exactly. That's the picture it's painting. But I don't think we're going to hand the keys over to computers and stop thinking and stop innovating. I just don't believe that. It's trending that way right now, and people don't really understand ChatGPT. The fear is people take that as truth and they don't question it, right? I mean, when you are in a spreadsheet and it calculates a number, you don't go, is that the right number? No, you accept it as a fact that it is. Well, people are treating ChatGPT the same way because it's a computer, but that's not the case. So we got to be very skeptical and
Well, there's a thing on Reddit. It's called Enlightened by AI. It makes me happy that the program is working properly. What about history, Tom? How off is it on history?
How off is it? It's right about a lot of facts, because a lot of things where it gets into trouble is if anywhere that, and this has spread to a lot of places, anywhere where there's political correctness involved, and it relies heavily on information coming out of colleges and universities. And it's very scared to say anything that doesn't agree with the viewpoint of what's coming out of academia. So, and it basically said that, like, it won't contradict academia, whether they're right or wrong. It's, if you ask it a question, that's how they're going to answer it.
We all know how right academia is.
Yeah, that's not the first place I go for answers to my questions. I can absolutely guarantee you that. All right, let me.
I probably have an unpopular opinion if I said the next statement, so I won't say it.
You're like ChatGPT. You don't want to. You don't want to.
I don't want to offend anybody. But we're off.
Your question is too long. Oh, I gotta get rid of 6 characters. Sorry for the gap, everybody. Trying to reword this. How about this? Ah, got it. Okay, so when did the world's computing power in total, meaning every single supercomputer in the world, every single mainframe, every single laptop, desktop, every computer all added up, put together, when was that enough computing power to answer one ChatGPT question?
Whoa.
I have a
I don't think it's that many.
2055, which is the future. That was supposed to say 2005. Third one's 2005.
So 2055.
Which means it can't do it right now.
Well, you're going to let, I'm going to say, just so you know, I said 2015.
All right. George is in on 2015.
I hope it's not 2005.
It's funny. We got only two answers. Well, one of the answers I typed wrong, so that's my problem.
I can tell you, I don't think it's 1985.
It's a two-way race. Vote if you want. Vote if you can.
So 1985. Let's see. I wouldn't have been out of high school yet. I got out of high school at 88. So that means we were still on BOD, like 3,600 BOD. And we were playing games that were still in green and white.
That's right.
What's the name? Xena?
Yep.
Was that it? The Legends of Xena or something like that?
That was one of them.
Yeah, and it was floppy disks.
Floppy disks back then, not the little ones, the big ones, the 5 1/4.
Yeah, the 5 1/4. Yeah. I also noticed, I can't say it. Oh, God. I heard there's a reason why these discs got smaller, by the way.
Oh, boy.
Same reason. You know where you went, and that's exactly what. Like, that's not going to work, guys.
We'll quickly go through a couple other. I want to get through some of these stories because there's a lot going on. We are stuck at 97 likes. Do us a favor. If you can get us to 100. Weekly recap. Circle scores big on IPO fever. So Circle was going to IPO at $31, but I think the opening bid was, I think, 69 or 70 bucks. It's at $110 right now. So if you look at this, I don't know why it's not giving me that. Oh, because it's up infinity because it didn't exist. But this went from $31 to $111 in the last couple of days. So this is, and that's now a $21 billion market cap. So, you know, that's more than a triple. At one point, it was a quadruple. This is starting to, we haven't had a successful IPO like this in a long, long time. So I think this is encouraging, and it's right here in our space. Circle, for those of you who don't know, that's the USDC. That's the only other significant stablecoin other than Tether. So let's go to the list because there's not that many. You've got Tether is the third largest cryptocurrency at $154 billion. And then USDC, which is Circle, which just went public, is at $61 billion. These were much, much closer a few years ago. This got wrapped up in one of the banks that defaulted and a part of the, I won't say the FTX, I think it was the thing before that. And it took a hit, and Tether really just ran away with this. But now that this is a publicly traded company, my guess is they're going to go after it. In addition to that, there are many other companies making stable coins because basically having a stable coin is just minting money. The company Tether has $154 billion that they need to keep pegged to the dollar. You can do that by buying U.S. Treasury bonds or just having a money market account. So whatever interest they make is theirs to keep. So they get to use everybody's $154 billion and make all the interest on it. So, and in the bill that the Senate is passing, they're not going to be able to offer interest to their customers. So you're not going to be able to collect interest on your Tether or your USDC or your USDT. But those are the only two significant. Those two make up 99% of all stable coins. But you have XRP is coming out with a stable coin. And you also have Trump's entertainment company just filed with the SEC for, I think it was a stable coin and an ETF. It might have just been an ETF. So that's why I bring it up. This is in our space. It's the 7th largest cryptocurrency in the world, and it IPO'd, and everybody wanted in. Everybody. So I think that bodes well for the crypto universe. When did the world's computing power in total reach a point where it could answer one ChatGPT question? The answer is, George, you are correct. The year 2015. If you took
10 years,
every single computer on Earth, all added up, put together.
That's crazy.
That's how much data storage and energy usage this program requires to run. It's mind-boggling.
That's insane.
I mean, it's the number of calculations it's doing per day is a number that we can't even fathom as a human being. It's like a trillion trillions.
Oh, is it doing that much?
Every day. And you know it's going to grow, even though 132 million people on it is a lot. That's just the beginning.
You know what is funny? There's a song about this. You know what I mean? You ever heard it?
No.
Ain't no rest for the wicked. Money don't grow on trees. I got bills to feed. I got bills to pay, mouths to feed. Sorry. It's about a hooker.
Nicely done. So you got Strategy raising $1 billion with some preferred stock to buy Bitcoin. You got, I'm just going to run through some of these, but this is a big one, and somebody mentioned it earlier. Metaplanet. This is not a big company. Let me see if I have their... I'll go to it in a second. Metaplanet to raise $5.3 billion to grow their Bitcoin stash. The company aims to increase its Bitcoin holdings to over 210,000 by the year 2027, viewing it as a hedge against Japan's economic challenges. $5 billion. This is one tiny company. This company is up, to put it in perspective, this is a $7 billion company, but that is only because in the last 6 months, it's up over 500%. So this was like a $1.3 billion company a few months ago, and they're now going to raise $5.3 billion to go buy Bitcoin. This is what I'm saying. And in other related news, what's going to facilitate this, let me find this article because I think it's a much bigger deal than people realize. JP Morgan, who's one of the gigantic behemoths in the financial institution world, they are also, their CEO is very famously anti-Bitcoin. He's called it garbage. He says it's a pet rock. It's worth zero. That's Jamie Dimon. And so despite that fact, they're going to accept Bitcoin ETFs as loan collateral. JP Morgan. So they have $3.5 trillion under management. So they're now deeming a Bitcoin ETF as a strong enough asset to collateralize a loan. So you're going to get companies that can do just what this company just talked about. They're going to go borrow $5 billion and buy Bitcoin.
It's going to get interesting.
I mean, JP Morgan stepping up and saying this is, these things fly under the radar, but this is a huge deal. That means this is going to be the standard in the world of bank. If JP Morgan's doing it, this is what is happening.
Wow. So basically people are going to start moving their money into Bitcoin like crazy.
I don't see anything telling me the opposite story. Do you guys?
This is what adoption looks like, Tom.
This is what adoption looks like. And it's really been in 2025. We had the ETFs came along at the beginning in January of 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. 2024. this year, we're seeing all of these other across the spectrum adoption everywhere you turn around. And there's still so much more to go. And by the way, the Bitcoin ETFs, they've had 48. Oh, sorry, that's just BlackRock's ETF. BlackRock's ETF has had $48 billion of inflow. Now, the Bitcoin they hold is worth a lot more than that because the price of Bitcoin is way up. Net, including the fact that GBTC, which is the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, had $23 billion of outflows. But even with that $23 billion in outflows, this is $44 billion of inflow into Bitcoin through the ETFs, and that's probably worth $60 or $70 billion right now. We just saw an article that said companies' treasuries are now $85 billion worth of Bitcoin. You see where we're going here? I mean, this is just getting going.
So basically, they're doing what I said too, Tom. This is the exact same thing. I'm just doing it to myself.
Oh yeah, they're doing what you're doing. That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right. And you can see, finally, after the biggest stretch of inflows, BlackRock had a couple of days of outflows, and then they turned right back into inflows. So they've run out, this BlackRock, for whatever reason, and all these ETFs are pretty much the same. I mean, there's very little difference. 0.25% fee, 0.25, 0.2, 0.21, 0.25. So other than the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which is 1.5%, which is why everybody left it, they all have almost no fee here at all. So they're all interchangeable, but for whatever reason, and that reason probably is it's their own customers, BlackRock is by far bigger than all the other Bitcoin ETFs put together, including Fidelity, which has, I don't know, $4 or $5 trillion under management itself.
Speaking of which, has Vanguard changed their stance yet?
Nope. So there's another big thing that'll happen. There's another $10 trillion that's not in Bitcoin yet.
Should I call somebody up about that?
I would make a few calls on that one if I were you, because
it's kind of crazy.
At this point, it's stubborn stupidity. And at some point, they're going to do it because it'll start costing them customers. And it already has started costing them customers. Or, maybe they're not losing the customer altogether, but the customer is just taking that money away from them and giving it to somebody who will give them exposure to Bitcoin.
It has no plans to offer a Bitcoin exchange.
There's just no line of reasoning. It's insulting to, right? And they have ultra high net worth clients. So you're basically telling your multimillionaires and billionaires that they're too stupid to know what they're doing, so we're not going to let you invest in this thing. And those kind of people don't tend to like that. Oh, I want to get to this question from Michael Anthony. Why did Applied Digital jump so much this week? And the answer to this question is critical to Bitcoin miners. So that is a great question. Let me find. Applied Digital announced a 250 megawatt AI data center lease with CoreWeave. So you can see CoreWeave, that's the same company dealing with Core Scientific. So they have now done a 250 megawatt data center deal with Applied Digital. So you can see 250 megawatt deal is, they're saying here, $7 billion in total revenue. Now, the catch is, if you read the sentence before that, that's over 15 years. So I don't know how close these facilities are to being ready. It could be a year before they start even collecting any, and it's $7 billion over 15 years. But this stock went up 40% the day they announced this. It was a gigantic, and this has traded very similarly to the Bitcoin miners. It's a data center company. It's traded very similarly to the Bitcoin miners. It's a very similar market cap to like right on the average of the larger Bitcoin miners. And it had a 40% jump on an announcement that they got a customer. So what I'm saying is companies like Iron and Cypher and TeraWulf in particular, there's and others that are Bitfarms that are trying to diversify their revenue streams and leaning into this data center concept where they're going to host high performance computing and make money off of it. This is the year, and we said this at the beginning of the year, the first day of the year, the first week of the year. Announcements about creating infrastructure for high performance computing are not going to move stocks this year. Last year, that moved stocks. Oh, we're moving into the space. That was a great announcement. We used a buzzword. Boom, our stock went off. No, this year, it's going to be the companies that announce they've gotten contracts. And you can see it's profound, a 40% move in this company in one day, the day they announced this. So if we go, so you can see this, they were down around $6.58, and now they're at $14. So, you know, they just stepped up and up and up. So they're up 102% in the last 5 days. That's a double in 1 week. And I think there's a lot of Bitcoin miners that would have the same results if they could get a contract similar to that. And that's what they're waiting for. I'll tell you this right now. TeraWulf's all in. They're waiting for this to be able to give this type of an announcement. They've allocated, to put in perspective, let's find that article. This is 250 megawatts. TeraWulf has allocated 500 megawatts of their 750 megawatts to be used for high performance computing. So you know they were probably vying for this very contract. Applied Digital got it. Now, Applied Digital was there first. They have a little head start, which is one of the things that concerns me about Bitfarms. They were there last. Oh, by the way, Riot has allocated a massive amount of their energy to high performance computing. Now, at the same time, they're going to continue growing their Bitcoin mining as well. Any parting thoughts, George? We got 106 likes. Thank you so much, everybody, for getting us over 100.
No, not really. Just I expected maybe a little bump this weekend, but I think about another week, probably Wednesday, Thursday, we should be sitting pretty.
So is our new line of support 100,000?
Yeah, I think it is.
So that's what I'm looking for. Can we hold? We didn't quite retest it.
I think it's going to get below it. I really do. I really think it's going to get below it. Not much, but I just think
99, 98, 97. Yeah. It got down to $100,377. So we didn't quite touch it. And so I wouldn't be surprised if what you're saying is right. But I think we're going to establish a new, and to have, I mean, put that in perspective. We're talking about having a line of support at $100,000. That number was, you know, sitting in November and December of 2022 at $16,000. That was unfathomable. But here we are, and I think we will keep going. So I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thanks, George, for your time.
Tom, thank you, Tom.
Thanks to all the members. Special thanks. Thanks to all the subscribers, and thanks to everybody that showed up. And I hope everybody has a great weekend.